Hi everybody, Tara Boston Kimber here, founder and clinical director of the Counseling Hub and a practicing counselor slash therapist in the state of Missouri. So I want to have a quick conversation with you about weight. And what I mean by weight is literally the number that you see when you step on the scale. That's what I want to focus on. I want to talk about why we need to think differently about it and also how to shift into a different mindset related to weight. So, first things first, it's just a number. That's the very first thing that I always think of. People get hyper-focused on a number. You know, I want to be this weight. I want to be in this range. I want to be X amount of pounds. And the implication being, because there's implications for that, right? So if I say to somebody, what does that mean for you? Well, if I reach this number, then I'll be satisfied. Then I'll be happy. Then I'll be at peace with the number on the scale. Then I'll be at peace with myself. What the fuck? You know, how much emphasis are we putting on a random number that changes from scale to scale, if we're completely honest? It's not like they're all made uniform or something. And that's a lot of, no pun intended, that's a lot of weight to put on one little number, right? So that's the first thing, is that we want to stop focusing on it because it becomes all-consuming, not for everybody. So if you're one of those people who, some people don't weigh themselves, like they just don't care and they focus on health, which we'll get to. So you may be one of those people and you might be thinking, I don't even care. Cool, good for you. Just quit watching this video and move on. And I don't mean that in a mean way, I mean literally, like you don't need to watch anymore if this isn't an issue for you. However, if you are somebody that focuses on the number on the scale, keep watching. So, we have this number on a scale, we put a shit ton of emphasis on it. We say, if I reach X number, whatever that number is, then I will feel better about myself, I'll feel good, I'll feel grounded, I'll feel at peace, I'll feel sexy, I'll feel confident, I'll feel all of these things that I don't feel right now. That's false. That will not happen. And if it does happen, it won't, but hypothetically you reach that point and you're like, I feel so good. That high is probably going to last, I don't know, a few weeks, maybe a couple months, and then you're going to potentially be at that number still and start to feel shitty again, because the way we feel about ourselves is not based on that number. And if it's not long-term, the way we feel about ourselves is not a result of the number on the scale. So if we think of it as, if we go with that line of logic and we say, cool, you reach the pinnacle of success with regards to the way you feel about yourself and it's directly related to your weight, then that means for the rest of your life, the way you feel about yourself is going to be based on that number and the weight that you are. Which means that if you go up at all, then everything comes crashing down. Or down, I guess, if you're trying to gain weight. Most people try to lose it, but if you're trying to gain weight and you go down at all, then all that confidence, it's done. It goes crashing down because you're not at the number that you want to be at. So that's really the issue, is that it's like you're, you know those inflatable clowns, or those like inflatable like holiday sorts of things that people put in their yard. You inflate them up and you're like, woo, that's exciting. And you have this whole like facade of like, the ones I'm thinking of are Santa's workshop, but it doesn't just have to be related to Christmas. You know, it can be anything. It can be related to whatever. So there's a facade of like Santa's workshop out front and you get really excited and it's really awesome. But we're not thinking about all the work that goes into setting that up, and then all the work that goes into keeping things pumped up, and then what if the generator or the power thing goes out, and then what if, like, there's all this stuff goes on. That is not a great analogy, but that's the way I feel about when we pump ourselves up based on something that's not actually coming from an internal place. So if we say, I feel good about myself based on something that's outside of me, like a scale, then we're kind of left, what's the word I'm looking for? We're dependent, we're reliant on that thing that exists outside of us to feel good about ourselves on the inside. That doesn't make any sense. and it doesn't last. I mean, that's really what happens, that people, it's inevitable that it just collapses. You know, Santa's workshop isn't going to be up forever. Eventually the air is going to be gone, or the machine's going to get tired of working so hard, so it's going to say, I'm done, it's going to crap out. Whatever, maybe the power goes out in the house and the electric stops working to Santa's workshop, so everything deflates. That's like what happens with us too, that we can't rely on things outside of ourselves to feel good about ourselves on the inside. So what we can do, however, and again, I think I said this in the beginning, but let me reiterate, I'm not opposed to people wanting to lose weight or gain weight, or that's not what this is about. The purpose of this is to say that the way we look at it needs to be different. We need to stop focusing on the number so much. We need to focus more, I don't really use that term lightly, we need to focus more on how we're feeling internally. And when I say internally, so this is where the shift comes into play. So if you're a person who focuses a lot on the number, then this is where you're going to make the shift. We're going to instead focus on, much easier said than done, so let's just say that real quick. We can instead focus on feeling good. I mean, that seems silly. I don't just mean I feel good based on my weight. I mean, literally, physically, how we feel when we eat something. When we think about food as, for how many freaking years did we didn't think about food in terms of caloric intake, or fats, or sugars, or starch, whatever. We thought about it in terms of it keeps us going. It's literally fuel for survival. It's gas to a car. I mean, that's what it is. If we shift back into that mindset just a little bit and we start to think about, when I eat a chicken salad with avocado on it, you've got fat, protein, veggies, and then I have an apple for my dessert. Do I feel light and energetic afterwards, or do I feel drained? Versus if I eat I like McDonald's. I think their food tastes good. It doesn't feel good, so this is what I'm talking about. If I eat like a McDonald's double cheeseburger with french fries and a large chocolate shake, do I feel light and energetic afterwards? No, I don't. I don't know about you. I feel like shit afterwards. It's definitely not something that I eat consistently, basically never at all, because I feel freaking gross after the fact. Not psychologically gross, I mean physically. I feel like I have a brick in my stomach, I'm lethargic, I want to take a nap, I'm tired, I feel like, ugh. Versus if I eat something that literally fuels me, I'm ready to go. We shouldn't be exhausted after we eat a meal. We should feel good after we eat a meal, you know? So the last thing I really want to, that's not the last, I'm totally getting ahead of myself. So ultimately, that's where a shift can start to occur. It can be what food as fuel rather than food as calories, and trying to restrict them and cut them and focus on the number on the scale. Just set that aside. Even for 2 weeks, set that aside and focus on how you feel after you eat something that is fuel for your body. And then let that dictate what you eat. So if you eat bread at 9 p.m. and you get cramps in the middle of the night, are those things related? Like, maybe you start to play around with it and see literally, physically how it makes you feel. So the other thing is that this is not about seeing food as good and bad. So I know I used a really generic example of chicken salad with avocado versus McDonald's double cheeseburger. We're not here to like make moral judgments on what's good and bad. We're here to make judgments on what feels good and what doesn't, which is based on your physicality, literally how you feel after the fact. I've said that like 1,000 times now, so I think it's becoming pretty clear that that's where I'm coming from. But I'm not for assigning judgments to food, because much like we feel inflated when our number on the scale is what we want it to be, and then deflated when it's gone, if we assign judgments to food, as in this is a good meal and this is a bad meal, then how we feel is based on whether or not we say something is morally good or bad, or one thing is worse than the other. Like, I'm going to go for the other. You know, So if I eat this, then I'm going to feel bad about myself. And then it turns into guilt and shame and anxiety and stress because now you have to work off the calorie. I mean, all of that noise. It's just so much. So I'm all for thinking about how we exist in the world and our relationship with food in significantly different ways than we do currently. And I think, again, if we think about food as fuel for ourselves, then our judgment is based on how we feel physically, which impacts our confidence also. So if we feel more energetic and we become more productive and we have more sex, or we go run, or we work out, or we get more done, whatever it might be, yeah, we're going to end up feeling good about ourselves. And if we're eating things that make us feel good, like physically good, probably our mental health is going to be affected too. So there's a lot of research out there to support food and mental health. So that is one of my favorite things, and I think it's fascinating. But that aside, maybe that's a different video. I think importantly that, maybe to sum up this video, right? Our confidence should not be a result of the number on the scale, and it should not be a result of eating good food in terms of moral judgments, right? Our confidence, I mean, it can be a result of so much more. So let's set that aside. But the reality is that when we start to think about food and weight and things related to those two things, I would say focus instead on how you feel when you eat physically, not psychologically, physically how you feel when you eat. What feels good in your body. So start to really pay attention, like grow that self-awareness with regards to your body. And by nature, you're going to eat things that do good things for you physically, and probably a byproduct is going to be losing weight. I mean, that's the reality. You want things that are satiating, you want things that give you energy, you want things that make you feel alive, you know? Long enough video, am I right? So, have a fantastic day. As always, questions, comments, feedback, always appreciated. And if you have a request, shoot me an email, or feedback, or whatever. Just shoot me an email if you feel so inclined. Tara, T-A-R-A, @thecounselinghub.com. Otherwise, I'm outie. Have a great day. Bye.